Hello everyone, welcome to the channel here of MeteoMark Weather. It's great to have you here with me. We're talking about Tropical Storm Sara that's causing tremendous rain across Central America, especially Honduras, eventually Belize, and all the way up the Yucatan as well as these other neighboring Central American countries. This system is going to continue towards the northwest once it reaches Belize. Does it get into the Gulf, and does it still have a narrow window of opportunity to become a hurricane? Let's get into it. In our three-dimensional satellite view of Tropical Storm Sara, you can see it literally just along the northern coastline of Honduras here. All that deep convection. Unfortunately, this is all going to come mostly along the coast and inland as very heavy rain. But you can see those cloud tops as high up as the Cayman Islands here and just west of Jamaica as well. So this is a very large circulation, a lot of moisture here. And we'll start off with the GFS here for Tropical Storm Sara, and then we'll progress over towards the European model. So as we continue through the next 24 to 36 hours, I know this is a real big mess here. Here is the north coast of Honduras. Look at all this heavy rain. This thing is basically hugging the coastline here, so to speak. It's right in here. You can see the center just offshore during the next 36, maybe even 48 hours here. The problem with this storm is you don't have any trough to kick it out. It's way up here. This high pressure doesn't start to become more dominant until later on this weekend. So this system kind of has no steering currents, and it's going to kind of wobble all over the place. Unfortunately, that means life-threatening rain and mudslides continuing for Honduras here, and then eventually over towards Belize. This is going to be a slow go of it. Here's Saturday morning. Look at this storm has barely moved here. This is 7 a.m. Look it up towards Jamaica and the Cayman Islands as well. You could continue to see, you're on the east side of the system, so these feeder bands on the east side will reach you as well. So this thing's going to be a massive rainfall producer for a lot of areas from Central America and the Western Caribbean Islands. Now, as we get into later on, here it is, Saturday night, 10 p.m., we do start to see this thing kind of push towards the northwest, making another landfall there in Belize. That's when this high pressure does start to build in across the southeast. You can see it has much more of a flow, so then it's going to start to pivot this more towards the northwest as we get into the late weekend into early next week. Now, this is where the GFS emerges it into the Gulf, just west of Cancun. This is by the 18th, so we're getting on into Monday at 7 p.m. here. So here's the factors we're looking at. We have weakening high pressure to the east here. So that's sliding off the coast of Florida. Then we got this big trough here to the north that's going to help pull this towards the north and eventually the east. You can see the 19th here into the 20th. We got a big ball of moisture. There's that area of low pressure. It's starting to look a little more subtropical here, but it almost looks like these easterly feeder bands start forming into like a squall line here. So this is interesting. It is, you know, catching up with energy here from the west as well. So it's possible this thing could really start to take on extra tropical characteristics as it approaches Florida. The time frame here is 4 a.m. on the 20th. So we're getting into next Wednesday. Here's the big broad area of low pressure associated with Sara. Look at this. This is a lot of rain and wind, and I think some of these could be squall lines on the eastern side of the system. So this is going to come in fast and furious here. Here's 10 a.m. This thing is really booking it, and you can see the low moves right just to the north of Tampa, and then right off the coast here, literally the same day here, the 20th. This thing really gets caught up in the westerly flow. That's why I think it'll start to transition towards extratropical. The good news is as well, and I'm going to touch on this later on in my video segment here, look at the rainfall that is going to get entrained into this trough in the east here. That's some good news. So looking at the European model, I've overlaid our potential track here from the National Hurricane Center of Tropical Storm Sara. Yeah, the National Hurricane Center does not have this bringing up towards hurricane, but look at this. European does stall this storm as well. Here's through the 15th, heading on into Friday, into Saturday. Look at this, just getting pummeled with heavy rainfall here from Honduras, Belize, even into Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, all the way up the Yucatan here towards the 18th into the 19th. You can see that does start to make landfall here in Belize on the 17th. So this weekend, into early next week, this does start to emerge into the Gulf of Mexico here. So very in agreement with the GFS model. National Hurricane Center doesn't go out much beyond this, so it's going to be interesting to see how this pivots with the trough. European model is actually quicker with this trough. You can see this is on the 19th at 10 a.m. High pressure is basically in the same position as it was on the GFS. So does this thing actually have the ability to get strong again once it gets over the Gulf? Both models are indicating a little bit more optimistic. And look how, yeah, this high pressure stays anchored. So this trough with what's left of Sara just kind of puts this storm into Florida very weak. So this is good news. This is what's the model runs have been doing today. So we still have to keep an eye on this situation, but it's looking a little bit more optimistic here as we go out in time. I also wanted to briefly show you the HWRF hurricane model here. I got a few frames that have loaded. So as we continue through the 14th into the 15th here onto Friday, you can see the center, it's pushing just along the northern coast here of Honduras. And look at this tremendously heavy rain that this storm's going to be producing. And look at this. If we just zoom out, you can see the feeder bands as far north as the Cayman Islands up here. So as we put this into motion, you can see this is going to be quite a moisture surge here into Honduras. Those mountainous areas, that's where the moisture is really going to squeeze out here. And look at that. 15th into the 16th, this center just wobbles all over the place. In fact, it actually goes a little bit back east here as we head on into the early part of the weekend, Friday night into Saturday. So this is very bad news for this region. If you want to go out just a little bit farther here on the HWRF, now that it's loaded, yeah, it's kind of bouncing around here towards the 17th. It's a little slower initially than our GFS and European run. Actually has it coming into northern Belize on 7 p.m. on Sunday here. So look at that. Circulation coming in right around the northern part, just north of Belize City here. And we just have a few more frames. There it is crossing over into the Gulf. And the HWRF model showing its circulation is still intact. And here's the intensity forecast scale here of Tropical Storm Sara. Yeah, there are still a few models that take this up towards Category 1. Very narrow windows of opportunity. This thing does stay a tropical storm a while, and even as it approaches the west coast of Florida during this time, it still could have tropical storm force winds. And those sea surface temperatures are just boiling across the Gulf here and the Caribbean and Western MDR. Some of these areas are as much as 3, 4, 5 degrees Celsius above average. Before we continue with some more weather here, if you made it this far in the video and you like it, smash that like button, everyone. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I love to read your questions or comments. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe and bell notification button so you're alerted with all my future weather video updates. Let's continue. Thanks to Tropical Tidbits here for our mid-layer and dry air analysis here. So as we put this into motion on the GFS first, and then I'll show you the European. There it is. As we continue through Friday and Saturday, this storm has not moved much. This is a much bigger rainfall maker. Since it's hugging the coast, it doesn't allow this system to become much of a hurricane. So that part is the good news. The bad news is, unfortunately, this continues to rain itself out across Honduras and the rest of Central America here over to Belize. And as we continue into Sunday, this makes landfall there in Belize, crossing over the Yucatan here. But look what it has to go through. This is the high pressure, all this dry air spilling southward. And look at this, the Cayman Islands and Jamaica might actually shut down this rainfall and tropical express, and you might actually dry out. But look at this. GFS is indicating this trough does start to bring this up around this ridge of high pressure. And as we continue to go out here in time, you can see into Wednesday, that low continuing, it looks more extratropical with the dry air on the backside here as it's merging with the trough and then making landfall here into Florida late Wednesday into early Thursday, and then pushing off the coast with much dry air behind it. Look it up here across the Yucatan. We got a lot of Pacific moisture continuing behind this. And we're just going to watch the Caribbean as we go in time, because we could be watching another system towards the 26th, into the 27th, into the 28th, trying to take shape here. But look, is this going to shut down tropical season here? Look at this. A big low pressure kicking this across the northwestern Caribbean and all of the Gulf, that dry air reaching pretty far south. This storm has nowhere to go, and it's kind of stuck just east of Costa Rica and Panama down here. And taking a look at the European model, yeah, very similar. Look at this. We go through the next 48 hours. Has that low pressure really moved? No, it really hasn't. Very little, and it bounces along the coastline. Tremendous rainfall, life-threatening mudslides continue in Honduras. Landfall in Belize right around Sunday. Looks like late morning, early afternoon. And then crossing over into the Gulf, getting picked up into this trough on the west side of this high-pressure system. And then right towards the west coast of Florida here on Wednesday. European model has it Wednesday morning, quicker than the GFS. So whatever's left of Sara, probably extratropical, will be impacting Florida during this time. And then a lot more dry air kicks in behind it here. Let's see if the European indicates anything in the southwestern part of the Caribbean here with the Euro. Well, a little bit. There's something showing up here. And if we take a look at wind shear here on our GFS model, wind shear is not going to be a factor here across the Caribbean. It's when the system emerges into the Gulf. It still looks pretty safe on Tuesday, but look at this. As it comes up across the central Gulf here on the GFS model, it starts to merge with this trough. And as it does so, the northern edge of this is going to encounter wind shear on the order of 35 knots and greater. And then I think by the time it reaches Florida, it's an extratropical system, whatever's left of it here. I wanted to progress this here on the GFS. As we head towards the end of the month, yeah, we do start to see that potential for storm across the southwestern and central Caribbean here, but we do have increasing wind shear from the north and west here getting into the Caribbean, so that could be a sign that maybe, just maybe, we could actually see this tropical system, this tropical season, I should say, begin to finally shut down. And looking across the Caribbean here, these rainfall totals are terrible, staggering here for the northern coastline and getting inland into Honduras here. That is where I think we could see 300 to 400 millimeters of rainfall here. We're talking about rainfall exceeding a foot, 2 feet. I would not be surprised if some areas reach that 20, 25, and maybe beyond that inches. This is going to look really awful. Belize up to the Yucatan to Cancun, you're also looking at a tremendous amount of rainfall here. In fact, let me just put my cursor over the northern coastline here of Honduras. You see that? That is 714 millimeters of rainfall. That is getting way up there beyond 25 inches here. This could be extremely dangerous. And heading into the eastern Caribbean here, rainfall amounts, they're a little bit lighter here if this thing will actually load. There we go. That's better. So as we continue through the 20th here, yeah, you just do start to see evidence that we'll see some showers here across the northeastern Caribbean. Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, yeah, you could pick up, they say, another 70 to as much as 90 millimeters on average here, more so towards the Cayman Islands. So you'd be getting upwards of about another inch or two, maybe as much as 3 inches in some areas. But down towards Trinidad and Tobago, that's where we could see amounts up to 40, 60, 70 millimeters potentially. All right, so here we go on the GFS. I just wanted to show you the Caribbean here. Unfortunately, this is loading really, really slow tonight. But here we go. If we put this into motion, you can see, yeah, GFS has a little bit more rainfall here across the eastern Caribbean. Some areas approaching 80, 90, 100 millimeters here with some of these tropical waves. Look at over towards Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, pushing in excess of 100, 110 millimeters over the next 2 weeks on average here. So spread this out over a couple weeks. You could be looking at close to 100, 125 millimeters. Get you up towards 3 to 4 inches. And here we go on the GFS model, especially for Central America. Look at even over towards Jamaica and Cayman Islands. I wouldn't be surprised to get another 60 to 100 millimeters out here, you know, getting up towards about 1.5 to 3 inches possible. But look at Honduras here. This is where things really get bad. And look at this. Yeah, we're up in the, we got a few areas, 869 millimeters, 700, 900. This is beyond, this is like 25 to 30 inches of rain. And if we look at the rest of the tropics here, we're going to go right to after the landfall of potential Sara across Florida there, that potential landfall. So we head through the 22nd into the 23rd. You can still see the Caribbean is open for business, essentially, here. Look at this. Yeah, we have some smattering of showers and thunderstorms. We got a weak disturbance here over Colombia. Now, let's just put this into motion. Here it is. We have another area of low pressure trying to form into a potential storm. This is right around the 27th, so later on in the month, we could be looking at another potential tropical storm trying to form here into the western and central Caribbean. Now, we got plenty of time to watch this because this is closer to more than 300 hours out. All right, and taking a look at the western Pacific here, we're watching Tropical Storm Man-yi here. That's going to become a typhoon and head right towards the northern Philippines, unfortunately, as a major typhoon. This is terrible news. And we have Typhoon Usagi here that's basically moving away from the northern part of the Philippines where it caused some major problems here. And that is going to be heading towards Taiwan in a much weaker state, however, because you can see to the north of it, there is a trough and there's a lot of wind shear up here and dry air from continental China here. But this is what we're going to be watching. Man-yi is going to be bearing down, unfortunately, on the northern Philippines. This has got to be the worst run of storms I've seen in quite some time for the Philippines, and it's going to bear down on the Philippines here. This is the 17th at 4 a.m., so you have very little time to prepare for this. This is a terrible situation. I can't even imagine. We're going to go over those rainfall amounts momentarily as well. You can see the European model progressing right across the northern tip and the northern islands here of the Philippines, re-emerging out into the South China Sea and then heading westward towards South China here, where it will begin to weaken as it heads towards that more continental air. All right, so I wanted to overlay the GFS model here for you. Let's take a look at Usagi first. Typhoon Usagi, there it is. It kind of fizzles out on the GFS as well. That's some great news. And zigzags just southwest of Taiwan. Here is Man-yi. Look at this. Monster typhoon. This thing's expected to go up towards 145 miles an hour. I think it could overshoot maybe to 150 or 160. Look at this. The northern Philippines just cannot catch a break here. This is 4 a.m. on the 17th, so you can see this major typhoon bearing right down on the northern Philippines here and then crossing over very quickly here. So that might minimize the rainfall amounts, but it's going to increase the wind and surge potential, which is terrible. And then, of course, bringing it over to the South China Sea and then towards the southern China coastline here and into northern Vietnam towards the 20th. And the Western Pacific rainfall amounts here, it is basically going to be parts of extreme southern Taiwan, the southern Japanese islands, and then with our typhoon hitting the northern Philippines. Thankfully, the rainfall amounts, since this is going to be moving so fast, the flip side of this, the positive to that, is less rainfall. So you'll be looking more, still a lot, 150 to 200 millimeters of rainfall, still getting up towards those 6 to as much as 8, 10 inches of rain. And looking at our HRRR future radar, you can see here across the east, look at this. This is continuing on into Thursday night into Friday. This is some good rainfall here for the Outer Banks of North Carolina up through Virginia, maybe even a little showers here across southern Pennsylvania, but that's not going to make it much further to the north and east, unfortunately, here. So these wildfires that have been burning up here in the parts of the Northeast are going to continue to cause, issues. Now, eastern North Carolina, we'll go over those rainfall amounts momentarily, but look at that. That low really starts to kick up here. Almost resembles more like a nor'easter, and you might continue to get clipped with morning showers on Friday, which is some great news, but look at that. There's a little bit of a lake response up here off of Lake Erie, especially Cleveland. You may see a few lake effect showers and clouds tomorrow that kick up in between, the sunny spell here at times. But look at that. As we head on into the weekend, we are not looking like much across the east. And if we pick up where our future radar left off, look at this. So we head through into your weekend here. Yeah, it's shaping up to be a beautiful weekend here across the east. Unfortunately, the wildfire situation up here in the parts of the Northeast is not looking good. Those gusty winds and dry conditions, humidity dropping to the 20 to 40% range. That is not good news. Now, as we continue into early next week, there it is into the 18th, into the 19th. We have a big storm system trying to develop here across the east, and that is going to continue to push here towards the northeast here. So look at that. There's what could be the remnants or extratropical Sara at that point, pushing with the trough eastward into across Florida very quickly there. And then there's another look at this though. The European is a lot more pessimistic with pushing this to the east, and literally you can see the showers and storms kind of just fizzle right out. They don't even make it to the east coast up here, the mid-Atlantic up into New England. Now this is associated with another trough. There's a inverted trough on the backside of this low pressure system, so it's helping Maine and northern New England get some rainfall here. But look at this. Our next storm showing up here across northern Louisiana, and yeah, that blasts up here, but look how dry it becomes back east here. This is quite unfortunate. All right, so taking a look at our rainfall amounts here, can we put a dent in this drought here? Well, the Outer Banks in eastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, it's looking like 1 to 2 inches continuing into this evening into early Friday. That's some great news. But then look at this. Very, very dry period coming. And we don't start to get some rainfall here until the middle of next week towards southeastern Louisiana with that tropical surge. But look at back east here. You're really, really bone dry here, unfortunately. In our Canadian weather forecast here, let's see what's going on for Canada. As we continue through the next several days, you can see as we head on into the weekend here, we've got a few areas of low pressure. One up here towards Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland. And look at this low pressure coming from the United States into southwestern Ontario. And the west coast, British Columbia, continuing to get pummeled by that Pacific moisture express there. So as we head into the 17th, into the 18th, there's a weak low heading into western Quebec here. We're still dealing with these low pressure systems across southeastern Canada and the Canadian Maritimes. A big low pressure over here, right around 986 millibars. And we're kind of drying out a little bit out west here. That's some good news. But look at that. Yeah, both coastlines will be really active. Look at this low pressure system, 966 millibars. This low doesn't want to go anywhere across southeast Canada here. This is the 19th, by the way. And we got this next system across the upper Midwest to the U.S. It does try to reach into Canada with very little success. It seems like a large part of Canada here is drying out, just like the northeastern and mid-Atlantic of the United States. And that's not good news because we do not need these wildfires threat continuing to be a problem. But you can see as we head through the 23rd here, there is not a whole lot to talk about. And taking a look at your Canadian rainfall amounts here, yeah, it's this tale of two coasts here. It's very dry across central sections, but look at the two coasts here. The Pacific, a little bit less, 60 to 100 millimeters on average to get you up to about 2 to 4 inches. But look at here back towards Prince Edward Island, parts of eastern and northeastern Nova Scotia, eastern New Brunswick, all the way up to Newfoundland here. You could be talking about 90 to as much as 125 millimeters of rainfall here. That'll get you up towards 3 to 4 inches pretty easily. And before we continue with more weather, check out these awesome, amazing maps that you won't find anywhere else.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease, or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
So for our temperatures continuing through the rest of the week into your weekend, look at this, 50s across the Ohio Valley into the northeast, a few upper 40s here into northern New England. in the eastern lakes region. But the Gulf Coast is really warm here into Saturday. Look at this. Yeah, it's shaping up to be a pretty nice weekend. Unfortunately, we're going to have some wildfire problems here in the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, but look at that 50s with very, very low humidity, sunny skies. And we head on into Sunday. You can actually see a warming trend going on. Look at these lower 60s making it into the Ohio Valley, into the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast I-95 corridor. Into Monday, the 18th here. Look at this, 60 all the way up to Cleveland, 50s here into the Big Apple and the parts of the Northeast into Tuesday. That surge continues towards the north here, 60s making it into southern Pennsylvania as well. And then as we continue into next Wednesday, look at this. We finally start to see evidence of a big cooling trend here. Look at that, 60s all the way down to the Gulf Coast and 50s and even some 40s here into the lakes. Extended forecast from our hometown viewers being into this Grand Susquehanna, River Valley of New York and Pennsylvania. Unfortunately for the wildfire situation, it is looking very dry. We're going to have another very cold night, down into the upper 20s, lower 30s. But then Friday we rebound towards the mid 50s. Into Saturday, look at that, mid 50s again. The winds are going to start gusting, unfortunately, Saturday as much as 25 to 30 miles an hour. Do not light anything outside. That could be really bad. Into Sunday, partly sunny, mid-50s. Into Monday, we get a chance of showers. But yeah, as we head into Tuesday, there's very little chances of rain here and a warming trend towards 60. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks, everyone. Share that video. Subscribe if you haven't. Smash that like button.